So, there's this thing that I notice a lot online. Not exclusively online, but mostly online. Where people sort of have this question. Why is the left always eating itself? In fairness, the question isn't always presented that ridiculously. And it is a good question to ask. Is the left really constantly in conflict with itself? The short answer is yes. A little bit. The longer answer is not as much as you'd think, and not as much as people presume. The first thing that we need to make note of whenever we're talking about people talking online is that, generally speaking, the stakes are always a bit lower. Everything is a bit more frivolous. This is why racist bigots feel more comfortable going on racist tirades over on Facebook than they do going on racist tirades to my face specifically. But because things on the internet are generally more frivolous, it means that people on the internet try to make a stronger impression, to make themselves and their issues seem less frivolous. And this holds true regardless of what people are talking about. You will find people online arguing just as passionately about whether or not Griffith, the fictional character from Berserk, did anything wrong, as you will find people arguing about whether or not Biden should release everyone from the concentration camps at the border, or whether or not they should be liberated. I'm just saying, all of which is to say, that the reason that discussions become more heated online, at least in my opinion, is because it is much safer to have discussions online. Whether or not you are presenting yourself as a real person or anonymously. And even if those spaces didn't exist, I think it will be a good idea to have those spaces for people. Because it helps people figure out what's really important to them. And speaking of things that are important, you know where I don't hear people talking about how the left is eating each other? On the street. I don't think that it would be an exaggeration to say that over the past 8 years, since about 2014, I have been to over 1,000 different political actions. And I can count the political actions where people got into fights about sectarianism on both hands. And that's not because every person that I've marched with or stood with or sat with has the same political ideology as I do. It's because when you're out on the street, when you're out doing something important, there's no room for that shit. Also, people who bring up sectarian bullshit get thrown out of those groups really fast. And I know that because I'm the guy that does the throwing out. I've marched with people that I know who were Republicans, who were Democrats, who were Democratic Socialists, who were Socialist Democrats, who were Socialists, who were Communists, who were Black Nationalists, who were Christian Nationalists, who were Discordians, and who were just there to have fun. And all of those people get along, because they're all after the same thing. When you're doing something important, when you're doing something truly important, then you realize that the goal transcends you. That you are not as important as the will of the collective, as the will of the people whom you are with. And I think that's beautiful. And on one hand, there isn't a whole lot of room for that online because there are so many people vying for so many things. But, like I said, having all those things online lets people figure out what's important to them. And when they do figure that out, that's when they step away and go out on the street. And I think that's good. I think that's something that works. And that is everything I had to say about that. I am all sayed out. Regular links are in the description and probably in a pinned comment. That's my Twitter if you want to see what kind of goofing off I'm doing on Twitter. Don't take Twitter too seriously. Don't take interactions on the internet too seriously, broadly, is my advice. I have a curious cat if you want to send me anonymous harassment or just regular questions. I answer both. Well, no, I don't answer harassment so much. It's kind of pointless. You can only get so many people asking about why you have long hair if you're a man before it just gets old and tedious. Normally, I would provide a link to my Ko-Fi so that you could send me a couple dollars if you had it to spare, but instead of doing that, there was a kid who was shot yesterday in Springfield named James Simpson. He died, and his family they can't afford a funeral for him, so in lieu of my Ko-Fi, in lieu of providing me money if you think that this was worth supporting, I would like for you to go to their GoFundMe page and send them a couple of dollars to help with their funeral expenses. It would mean a lot to me. We've been having a lot of shootings here in Springfield, and it's terrible. That's just about everything. Just let me see what the topic for tomorrow is going to be. Tomorrow's topic is how the riots in Ireland were predictable and preventable. That's pretty contentious. I preemptively apologize for offending everyone. Hoo boy, I should change that. But I won't. So yeah, until we get there, go do something important and take care of yourselves, alright?